Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros MLB. It is me, Joey P. Joe Pisapia. With me is the Welsh in our first full show of 2025. So, of course, we're going to look ahead to the future. We're going to talk Dynasty rankings today. We're going to go through Welsh's top 50 here, maybe some guys on the fringe, and also make sure you keep a lookout because Welsh is working on the top 150 article that's going to be on FantasyPros.com in just a few short hours from now. It might even be up by the time this show comes up, so just run over there and check it out. Welsh, Dynasty is your bread and butter. You're the prospect guru. You're the guy at the AFL who is, kissing babies and shaking hands and doing everything you need to do to get on the field to make sure that you are getting your finger on the pulse of what's going on here with some of these young players. But it's also some established veterans too. It's a mix here in this top 50 that we're going to break down today with the tiers. So generally speaking, when you're approaching Dynasty drafts, especially for the first time in these, clean leagues that are starting in 2025, or if people are just trying to evaluate some of their players and what their values really should be heading into another year of Dynasty in a league that already exists, what's your best practice when you put it out there for the people in terms of trying to create a balance of prospects and win now?
Yeah, no, this is like the big thing because I think there's a couple encompass things in here in Dynasty. I would always tell everybody, no Dynasty rank or list is perfect. And I know that that can be contrite, okay, we'll rank. No, but you get a redraft list, you kind of know what it is. But in Dynasty, things can be whatever that you want them to be. The Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory of fantasy baseball, because it's you can construct this super young team to play for the future, but you got to eat a couple years. You can take advantage of values where people are only wanting young players, and you can take veterans to try to win now. So my rank isn't necessarily going to fully encompass what you might want to do with your specific one. So you have to understand that first and foremost. That's the big thing. But if you're in a restart, a refresh of Dynasty, there are different ways to approach it. So my rank that we're going to talk about is a kind of overarching theme, which you would have to make your own adjustments. I do, redraft and Dynasty and prospect stuff, and I've also done it on my Patreon as well at inthisleague.com. And one thing I've always said is if you are a win now team, you want to start transitioning from Dynasty into redraft. You could do that here with Fantasy Pros and their ranks. Top 100, maybe really make that as a hyper focus for what you're doing in a Dynasty draft. Then start moving to your redraft. On the inverse, if you are I'm going to play for the future, I want to get a bunch of the young guys, well, take that top 100 and then start reverting to a prospect list. So that's how you would do that. So you have to come to terms with, are you a win now? Are you a balance? Or are you a play for the future? So we'll talk about that in all of these ranks because there would be certain levels where we would adjust to if I'm a win now team, let's start to bump this up. I don't think that exists really in the top. It doesn't exist in the top 10. You get into the top 20, it kind of doesn't. Top 30, a little bit. And then it's once you get outside the top 50, then it really is important to know where you are. So this is an all-encompass list that is talking more about balance, but you do have to understand if you're a refresh and you're a new Dynasty, what type of team are you trying to construct? If you're already in a Dynasty, this is going to be probably more about player evaluation, or at least where I value these players in a Dynasty overall.
Yeah, and one other note that I would throw out there for those starting up Dynasty leagues too is take advantage when people maybe go too prospect heavy with, a lot of younger guys who aren't really proven even the minor league level yet. Pivot and take the value of some of those guys that are established veterans. Even if they're 30 years old, there's still a lot of baseball left in some of these guys. So
it's a great point. Two things I'm going to add to that. My ranks, especially my prospect ranks, we're not necessarily doing prospect ranks here. My prospect ranks do encompass an overarching worldview, but my Dynasty ranks are kind of a 3-year window. I look at these as a 3-year window in value. So you might have some Dynasty rankers that go and put, a guy that is 2 or 3 years away, way, way, way high. I might have them a little bit down. I still value, guys that are not quite there in a high level. We'll talk about that with some of these, but, I try to do 3-year windows. So with that, I might even have some older guys a little bit higher in Dynasty. And then that comes to my personal strategy here. I will tell you, I tend to lean in more of a win now standpoint. Because if you just legit just break
I'm like a
Dynasty
3-year window guy. That's my thing. 3-year
And if
window.
you want to break down 3 basic tenets of Dynasty rosters, it's what I said before. Win now, balance, super young playing for the future. I'm going to be on that first one. I want to win now me also like knowing that I feel like I'm very comfortable with being able to build a minor league system, evaluate younger players, but there are incredible values. That's the biggest thing that stands out about dynasties is the number one value is older players are going to start to fall. You're going to see that in some of my ranks. And then it starts to go to other levels. People don't want to value closers as much. Starting pitchers can get pushed down. So there's a lot of just like weird little intricacies of dynasty. But win now to me has always tended to be the best approach with little sprinkles of youth and future play, because at the end of the day, you got to like hope that dynasties are going to stick around long enough to be able to build it for the future. So I do lean a little bit more into the win now, but as we talk, this is closer to 3-year window stuff when we go through at least what my ranks are.
And for Welsh's full prospect write-ups too, check out the Fantasy Baseball Black Book over on Amazon. Welsh, myself, Kelly Kirby, Casey Bubba, Joe Rico, all the contributors this year. It's available on Amazon, and Welsh does a phenomenal job with all those prospect write-ups that he does there. So let's look at the big board. Let's start with the top 10 here. Really, like, this is kind of splitting hairs if anybody wants to, but this is, I think, a pretty darn good list. You got Shohei Ohtani at the top. Obvious reasons. Is he risky because of the pitching? Yeah, sure. Is he something we've never seen before? Yes, he is, and he's very special, so he's the 1-1. Then you have Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson, Elly De La Cruz, aggressive at 4, but as he continues to fill out that frame, you have to imagine there could be even more power to be added there for Elly De La Cruz. Juan Soto at 5, just signed the giant deal with the New York Mets. I'm still on a high about that. Julio Rodriguez at 6, Fernando Tatis Jr. at 7, Ronald Acuna at 8, Paul Skenes at 9, Kyle Tucker at 10. I want to talk about Ronald Acuna. He is 27 years old, going on 28. Now he's got both knees done. It's funny because if you asked me last year, I mean, he would probably be, 1 or 2 on this list, most likely. So you're getting a little bit of a discount on him. But I think people are starting to get a little concerned. He's had a bunch of injuries now before the age of 30. My mindset is, well, he's got both knees done. That was the bigger problem. And now we should be clear sailing, hopefully, for the rest of his career. Do you have that same kind of confidence? You must. He's a top 10 player, but do you think the market sees Ronald Acuna still as closer to a top 3 guy or closer to a, 8, 9, 10 guy?
I've seen him outside the top 10 in some dynasty rings. So I would actually say, I think there's a couple things that are in this too. I'm good with Ohtani. You're good with Ohtani. I don't think everybody would be, because not only do you have the age positional issue, you also have, he's the old, I think, and let me look at this. I believe he's the oldest player on this list that I have. So that can throw some people off, but he's a unicorn. But I do think if you wanted like Bobby Witt as number 1, I'm totally fine with it. If you wanted Juan Soto in a points league, points dynasty league, Juan Soto would probably be higher. So then it comes back to Ronald Acuna, and what you said is you're right. I think last year, the conversation, this was Ohtani or Acuna. And the things that hold you back, I think, obviously are the injuries and the multiple injuries. He's not into Stanton territory or Buxton territory, anything like that. But we are stacking some injuries. And then he's a little bit affected by redraft values as well. Redraft ranks. He's outside the top 20. I think he's like hovering right around 20. He was outside the top 30 about a month ago. But part of it is, doesn't look like he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season. So if you're starting in a fresh new dynasty, I think you have to consider that with Acuna, that you would bite a little bit of the season. That's a little secondary. Might run less, he also mentioned. Maybe that's only this year. That's something to consider. But also,
remember, that's what we thought last time he had the knee surgery. Everyone said, maybe he won't run so much. Meanwhile,
73 stolen bases. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. But he's even kind of talked about that potentially coming down. And then I think the other thing to potentially take a look at is if you're looking at like massive impact, there were some downs from this past year. And it wasn't like, he's like dealing with some arm thing. No, his strikeouts went way up from the year prior. He had 11% strikeout rate in 2023. It went up to 23.9, which was more career average. Lost barrel rate. Obviously, there was more season to be played, and the home run totals were way down. I would say my best way to associate all of this with these players, it's not necessarily about Acuna being this lower dynasty value as it is. It's such an incredible tier of players. Julio Rodriguez has a down year, one of the youngest. He's great. Tatis kind of retransform. He's always a 30-30 play. We talk about Gunnar Henderson. We talk about Bobby Witt. Elly De La Cruz as well is a unicorn freak who I think could be the number 1 overall. It's just such a great collection of players to put in here that I think Acuna properly fits a little bit lower with now some injury risk, a little bit power down. Maybe the stolen bases come down, but like if you had the 6th pick in a dynasty and you got Acuna, that's pretty slick, but you're already playing maybe slightly behind the 8 ball as far as your production in your first year. But to me, he's a top 10. I can't put him outside the top 10.
Skenes is the only pitcher on your top 10 list. If I had a pitcher on the top 10, I would put Skubal up there, despite the fact it's really 1.5 glorious seasons. He's older. He's 28. He's left-handed. He is about to hit the market soon, which we love guys coming up on contract years. My problem with Skenes is not how great he is, and the routine is incredible. Everything about Skenes is fantastic. My concern is learning the lesson from years and years of doing this, decades now, plural. You feel like there's going to be a Tommy John at some point with anybody that throws this hard. So the question is, when does that happen? And does he miss an entire season? Because it happens at a certain time, but like a better time, quote unquote, like early in a season, as opposed to in the middle of a season, or does he miss a year and a half, possibly 2 years because of it? It's all about the timing of that. And in Dynasty, that's just something, of course, it could happen to any pitcher. It could happen to Skubal, it could happen to, any of these guys. But it just feels like the potential for it to happen to Skenes is a little higher than most. And when you factor in the risk versus the top 10 ranking, to me, I'm passing on all pitchers in the top 10. If I had to buck for one, it would be Skubal, although Zach Wheeler is a guy that's been so incredibly consistent. Maybe we don't give him enough credit to. But
just too old.
Let's talk. Yeah, that's the problem. He's too old. So let's talk about Skenes here in the top 10 and the risk that really is out there, because I'm sure it's going to be tantalizing for a lot of players out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be frank. It would be hard for me to take Skenes and take a pitcher for everything that you said. Mm-hmm. I think this is Dynasty. So from that perspective, from a 3-year window perspective, Skubal and Skenes, like if you want to take Skubal over him, I think that's justified. If you are thinking about the bigger scope, like there's a massive, massive age difference. I love Skenes though as well. Like I'll take the talent of Skenes. It's not to take away from Skubal. Had one of the most ridiculous K rates on his four seam, 37% this past year. He had a 1.96 ERA with a 2.53 expected. 33% strikeout rate was absolutely absurd. And that splinker just became an absolutely dominant pitch. He's elite of elite. He's young, but the problems, massive college innings. Yeah. All of these big velocity arms have some type of an injury. Hell, I'll throw you this example. I love Shane McClanahan. It's a player I always loved. He was near the tippy top, probably 2 or 3 on my list of Dynasty pitchers last year. Guess what? 2 of the 3 of my Dynasty pitchers injured, Strider and him. So right. to speak to your point, investment in a pitcher is really tough. But from the talent perspective, it's Paul Skenes. The age perspective, it's not remotely close in the value of what you're getting on him. The 3-year window maybe makes it a little bit more comfortable. This isn't like a young pitcher who is like, oh, he's like the 15th ranked guy and has upside. This is the number 1 redraft pitcher right now. I mean, everybody expects the production of what you've seen out of him is going to be elite of elite. Can I get 3 years before an injury? Yeah, I do think it's a possibility, but you are taking on inherent risk. We always chase this with Chris Sale. I would just throw out. Everybody year in and year out would chase this idea. Chris Sale, his arm, he's going to blow it out. And it never happened. It's kind of a different world that we're in right now. So I agree with you. I think this is the riskiest of all of this because you've got these incredible hitters that are around him. You've got some incredible hitters right behind him. But if you want to own the starting pitcher market, this is what you're going to have to pay for Paul Skenes. Paul Skenes is higher in a lot of other
Strider
spaces.
In your top 10 last year, Welsh?
No, but he was my number 1 SP for Dynasty.
Right. Well, there's the cautionary tale. That's why I was
100%.
I imagine he was top 15 or 20 for sure.
Yes, I think it was like, I want to say 19 or 18 or something like that, right in that range.
Yeah. All right, let's get to the next grouping of 10 here, 11 through 20. Corbin Carroll with Arizona, Jackson Chourio, who really turned on the second half at 12 with Milwaukee, Vlad Jr. at 13, Aaron Judge at 14, Jose Ramirez at 15. Maybe not enough respect for Jose Ramirez. I know he's not as young as some of the other guys in this list, but man, oh man, that guy just continues to have season after season.
If you think a 3-year window, I mean, this is huge value right there.
But I was thinking the same thing. I'm looking at him there, and I'm thinking to myself, man, do I feel better about him in a 3-year window than Jackson Chourio? Probably. I just do. Well, I love Chourio. But I think I know what I'm getting in the next couple of years, and I think Chourio is a great player who's going to really be special. But 3-year window, maybe Jose Ramirez. But regardless, we'll continue on here. 16, Tariq Skubal. 17, Bryce Harper. And then Yordan Alvarez at 18. We have Mookie Betts at 19, James Wood at 20. Let's start with Corbin Carroll. A mixed bag last year. Very frustrating first half, prolific second half. sophomore slumps happen, adjustments get made. He made them. So obviously, putting your Arizona Diamondbacks love aside,
Yes.
that Corbin Carroll, you and I are both big fans of his. He did what he had to do for me, and clearly for you too with this ranking where, okay, the league adjusted to you, you made adjustments back, second half was fantastic, and now it should be theoretically clear sailing. Yes. Do you worry about frame or size with Corbin Carroll in terms of long-term investment?
Frame and size is it's not a big, I mean, you could have had that same argument about like Jose Altuve his entire career, and he's kind of kept going. A little thicker.
And worse because he plays the infield because
yeah, exactly. And
more,
he's a little bit thicker and stuff like that. And you could make arguments that maybe everybody on the planet was like Corbin Carroll's shoulder. Those two things were peanut butter and jelly for conversations about why he wasn't producing as well. And you could maybe say like, oh, a guy with that type of frame, and the velocity. You want to talk about bat speed? We have new bat speed trackers this past year, and God, it's gonna be amazing being able to go year over year bat speed. But you want to talk about bat speed? He was like top, essentially 20th percentile in the league, quite a bit faster than the average. So that type of like framing could be the issue. We never did find out if there was a shoulder injury that was actually going on. What we did know, and I talked about all year, was there was a hole in the swing in his rookie year that people didn't take advantage of. Yeah. They saw it in the offseason and they pounded it this past year. It was up and inside. He could not figure it out until the second half. I mean, the power surge was bad in the first half. He had 5 homers, but in 353 at-bats in the first half. In the second half, in 236 at-bats, he hit 17 homers. He tripled his power output. He figured it out. 212 average in the first half, 258 in the second half. The stolen base pace was higher because he was getting on base more, but there's some downside. So we've now experienced what the downside is. His expected batting average was only 240, coming off of hitting, 231. So that doesn't if he had like an expected 275, we'd be like, oh my gosh, Corbin Carroll could be back to being a 300 hitter. What we found out about him was he's a guy who wants to work through it. Maybe he's not as high contact of a player as we thought before, but he proved in whatever you thought about the injuries that the power was still there. He showed 20 plus power. He still stole 35 bases. These paces weren't as much as the rookie season, but he walked more. He struck out less this past year. He kept barreling the ball, and he was able to push through a monster second half. All the talent in the world to be a 25-50 player year in and year out, and he worked through some big bumps. Is that a first-round fantasy talent? I still think it is, but there's risk. And that's why the last thing I would say is it is a very interesting and weird situation when you get to right up to Skenes, then you get Skenes, and then you look at all this collection of players where there's these older guys, there's Judge, there's Ramirez, and then there's the Corbin Carrolls, and then there's the Jackson Chourios. You're now really balancing, do I want the upside versus what I've always had? And that's why, if you wanted to take Jose Ramirez over Carroll here, I think you could.
Yeah.
Last thing
I'll
say,
to be honest, I would.
And I think I know you would. My rank isn't 100% in a 3-year window. It's weighted to a 3-year window. So the 3-year window takes a higher weight. So when you do the whole, would I rather have Ramirez over Chourio? Yeah, maybe I see that, but you still have to think about the long term. But yes, Corbin Carroll has inherent risk, but I think the second half told us a really great story that this is one of those guys that can be 20 to 25 with anywhere from 35 to 50 plus stolen bases in a high-powered offense. So I still love him, and yes, I'm a homer. He's literally right above me on the camera.
And now you got 2 guys named Corbin on the Diamondbacks. So how's that going to work out?
I know, all the Corbins.
We've also got Vlad Guerrero Jr. on this list at 13, who uncertainty next year where he's going to be. How do you factor that in too? Because, a lot of, I think the future of Vlad Guerrero has to do with what environment he's in, and hopefully it's a good environment for him. We've seen him struggle at times with weight. We've seen him struggle at times at the plate. And last year was a great season for Vlad, a big bounce back, again, monstrous second half, that big contract looming. Is Vlad Guerrero Jr. for you, with that uncertainty of where he is next year, a good investment?
Yeah, I don't think the certainty is it looks like he's not going to be a Blue Jay. It might be more certain that he's not going to be there. Yeah. So the uncertainty you're talking about is the destination. I think most of the places he's going to go, or at least he's projected to, are better hitting environments. Boston is the number 1 right now. I'll take him hitting in Boston over Toronto.
I don't want him in San Francisco. You know what I mean?
No, that would be brutal.
They've got money. They've been trying to spend it for the last 3 years so hard, that would be one that would upset
That
me.
would, you're 100% right. But if you were a Dodger, that would be the best thing on the planet.
Can we not
I
do
know.
that?
We're not going to. Boston
Come
seems
on,
like a likely situation. So when you talk about the uncertainty, the destination is probably going to be a better hitting environment. The destination, the team will probably have better players around him for better run support. And then on top of it, you put this 25-year-old first baseman who was top 10 percentile across the board in hitting, 13.7% barrel rate, top 9%. Hard hit rate, 54.9, top 3% in the league. He hit 323. His expected batting average was 321. It's like the best in the league. He checked every single box, doesn't strike out, walked more, barreled more. He's in a contract year right now, and then the environment can get better. Everything is in this beautiful scenario for Vlad. The only negatives from Dynasty is he's kind of like a first baseman, doesn't steal bases, but he's centered around, older players. Like, Judge is going to hit more homers, but he's a bit older. You can pair out some of the other first basemen that have kind of lost some of the value. Bryce Harper is probably a good comp, but he's younger. He's still just really young. He's an incredible bat who's shown high batting average and is a elite 4 category player. So I love Vlad from the age, from the uncertainty that is probably only going to be a plus. I just think he's a great dynasty buy in the second round, but you're kind of devoid of stolen bases there. A really great pairing if you had the ability to. Elly and Vlad would be like a killer 1-2 punch for stolen bases.
Well, actually, it's funny because in this 10-teamer you're wrapping around here, Acuna and Vlad would be the actual combination there.
Love that.
Not too shabby.
Go play a 10-team dynasty then.
go do that. Last guy who cracked the top 22 I want to talk about is James Wood, who last year at 21 made his debut, hit 264, 781 OPS, 9 homers, 14 steals. Stage didn't look too big. I'm aggressive on him, and I'm happy you are too. I want to talk about your aggression with James Wood because I think we see eye to eye on this guy.
Yeah, and I think James Wood is the first representation of the young player where their redraft value does not equate to the dynasty. Because that's the thing that everybody has to come to terms with in dynasty. Is you're like, oh my God, why is this guy who's never played, or never had a single at bat in the majors, why is this guy in the top 60 over this other guy? James Wood is the first representation of redraft not translating to it, but it is, it's all the potential like what you're talking about. He had 264 last year, which you love, lowered his strikeout rate at AAA, still pretty high at the majors. That's going to improve. Walk rate was good, a great 10% barrel rate. Hard hit was elite at 52%, which is bonkers. And his expected batting average supported his batting average. So all these fun things. He barrels the ball, he hits it hard. Batting average is supportive of where he was, so you can grow on it. He's got tools for days. I said this last year. I think I said it here. I said it on a show over on CBS, that if you want a player for the future to project that has freak-like abilities like Elly De La Cruz, it's James Wood. James Wood would be that type of player. And it's not even just meant to be like physical comps of like he's 6'7" or whatever.
No, he's
like
got
this,
all the tools.
This dude has improved.
Eye test, man.
He's improved his bat-to-ball skills exponentially. He could always run, but now you're looking at a guy that could go 30-30. So you got to, this is where you're going to have to start paying up for someone whose production doesn't quite justify the cost. He's that first representation of it. And I think this is, where you maybe, and here would be a good example of something you could do. You're like Joe and you say, I want Jose Ramirez a little bit higher over another, like you want to do it over Carroll or Jackson Chourio. Take Ramirez in the first and then come back and get James Wood. And you're getting some of that upside. Those two could be really great combinations.
I agree. I think that's a great way to put it too. Let's talk. That's roster construction 101, folks.
Yeah.
A little bit of upside, a little bit of floor there. You got the best of all worlds. Next here on our list, 21 through 30, Francisco Lindor at 21, Rafael Devers at 22, look to be moving positions there, Junior Caminero at 23, Jarren Duran at 24, Wyatt Langford cracking the top 25, Spencer Strider, Austin Riley, Garrett Crochet, a bunch of pitchers there, and then you have Ketel Marte at 29 and Jackson Merrill at 30. Junior Caminero, a guy I was very high on last year. I'm still very high on Caminero. However, I'm just not sure if he's done enough yet to warrant the top 25, which is basically where he is. He's right in that 23 range. What did you see out of him last year? I only hit under 250. The OBP wasn't great. It was a small sample, 43 games, but still, I would like to see a little bit more before we get quite to top 25 stats for Caminero. I think it's too high. Why are you so aggressive on the projectability? Is it just because he missed so much time being hurt last year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can take too much out of like the rookie campaign. He's 21 years old. He had a it's called 250 batting average in the majors. Prior to that, in the minors, he had shown the ability to lower that strikeout rate, which he also did in the majors. 22% in his first campaign of 2023. 21.5, very good for a rookie. Elite barrel, elite-ish hard hit for a rookie at 45%. Already put one up 116 on max EV. So I'm getting at is you got a guy that is not striking out a bunch, has always had elite contact skills. You're talking 30 plus homer projection. The offense around him maybe is a bit of a question, but this is that battle where the weighted 3-year kind of moves a little bit because this is a 21-year-old. Like, he has time to work. His projection of a player, as long as it keeps moving in the right direction, is someone that's probably going to look like a Rafael Devers, if not better. So that's why you pay this price right now. And this is a battle of that win now versus playing for the future. But I think he's a happy medium because you're going to get full year production out of him this year. And I would expect the low side is like 250, 25 homers, 21 years old. You're going to be sitting on him for a long time.
Wyatt Langford last year had big expectations. Now, a terrible April and March. Terrible. I mean, he hit 238. Then May was only 6 games. He missed time. Came back, was incredible in June. 894 OPS, hit 300. Then July and August tailed off a little bit, only to be brilliant again in September, where he hit 300 again with a 610 slugging percentage and a 996 OPS, 8 homers, 20 RBI. That is a hell of a finish. Wyatt Langford could be one of these guys, like, if he could find that consistency, would be a top 10 maybe next year. Do you see that jump, or is it more of this growing pains and finding himself in 2025?
There's a little part of me that isn't sure that there's like insane upside of Wyatt Langford. He hit 253, 16 homers, 19 stolen bases. Now, bear with me just for half a second when I say that, is I'm not sure I would look at him and be like, oh, this is a guy that's going to hit 35 homers, steal 45 bases, and da-da-da. I think you might be like, he's going to become a better hitter from the 253. He had a 257 expected batting average, low strikeout rate, but he settles still as like a 25-25 guy. But the base stealing looks aggressive. The plate skills look kind of elite for a rookie. Again, almost under 20%, almost 10% walk rate, really great overall hit skills. And just a couple notes I had on him. He hit 240 plus against 3 different pitch types. Again, this is a rookie. He had a 30 point plus against fastballs. So 231 jump of his expected batting average. So he hit 265 technically on the expected side. He was expected to, and almost a 50-point batting average boost he had against sliders, where he only hit 200, but an expected 250. So what does that mean? That means a little bit more progression. Those balls are going to start flying. He also had a 3+ expected home run total on Baseball Savant. So just seeing that he's got a little bit more home run upside. All of the nonsense of what I'm saying is like, this looks like a really, really good hitter, someone that can be aggressive as far as his running goes. And I think I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 285, 25-25 guy. There's a lot of upside for what the floor is going to look like. I'm just not sure he's going to be like Elly or like Corbin Carroll.
All right. Garrett Crochet, certainly a great season. Not a full season from only 146 innings. Now he is going to be a Boston Red Sox. He's just 26. I got to tell you, Welsh, he is one of my favorite values on this board here at the 28th spot overall. I feel like this is where I'm about ready. If I'm going to take a plunge with a pitcher, I'm going to take it with the 6'6" guy who's 250 and like just throws gas, and now has found himself on a significantly better team with a different color pair of socks, where games are going to matter now for Garrett Crochet. Anything else to add on this guy too? I mean, did you see, I know it's like one glorious season, but still, I think there's a lot to like here with Crochet.
Yeah, I actually love your assessment too of like, maybe I don't take Scuba, maybe I don't take Skenes. You come into like a third round and you can get Crochet. Yeah, I think it's
a
really
little old. He's funny. He's younger than Scuba, but he's older than Skenes. But again, the size and the frame, I just look at him and I'm like, man, that's a hoss. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I just want to agree. 3.58 ERA, 2.5 expected. So a full run lower when he was a White Sox. Elite, 35.1% K percentage. And I love this. Every pitch he threw had a 30% plus whiff and K percentage. Wow. Every pitch was elite. The only thing to worry about is maybe Boston. Boston has some ballpark factors that can maybe negatively work against him. Boston's overall the second ballpark factor best for hitters. The Sox were the 21st. And for right-handed hitters, Boston is number 2. Chicago was 13th. So what I'm saying is there, for right-handed hitters against him, there's a little bit more of an advantage from a ballpark factor, but he's an elite strikeout option and he's got plenty of time to go. And he's already got that injury out of his way as well. So I love him as a dynasty buy.
Next tier, 31 through 40. Now, this is the round where I want to trade out. I want to trade up or I want to trade back because this group to me is a lot of volatility. Jazz Chisholm at 31, Trey Turner at 32, Michael Harris at 33, Cole Reagans at 34, then Jackson Holliday, Jason Dominguez, Logan Gilbert at 37, Dylan Cruz at 38, lots of projectables with him in Washington and Wood. We have O'Neal Cruz at 39, and then Roki Sasaki. I keep always going to say Rocky Sasaki because it sounds fun.
It's a pretty great name.
Roki Sasaki, come on, you're going to eat lightning and crap thunder. But anyway, Roki Sasaki, we'll see where he lands at the end of January. Hopefully in a good spot. But I want to start with Michael Harris in this group because this is a guy I feel like I can get, 15 and 15 other spots. And I like Michael Harris as a real player. As a fantasy player, I think he's one of the most overrated guys. I thought it last year. I didn't like the ADP at all. You know this. We had lots of discussions about it. I know there were moments last year in the second half where it came to life, but he gets bounced all over the lineup. I don't know, man. Michael Harris to me is one of these guys that's really tough to gauge. I would rather take a shot at what the upside of Dylan Cruz is at 38 than Michael Harris at 33.
Joey, it's funny that you say that. You kind of got me thinking a little bit because I love Jason Dominguez, who is a couple spots lower. You've already got, so we'll talk about the guy in a little bit, but there's already some other favorites for AL Rookie of the Year.
For the record too, Dominguez is another guy I'd rather have than Michael Harris.
I love Dominguez. Just runs aggressively.
Well, I've seen him play in person a couple times here too in Somerset, and he's terrific. I mean, he's a terrific young player.
He's not the best defender, and he's got some.
Oh no, I'm talking offense. Yeah.
Yeah, but offensively, he's got huge power. Stolen bases are there. I think he's going to hit better. Dylan Cruz, kind of the same thing. I love that. The thing that holds you with Michael Harris, bad first half, like kind of again last year, but second half, he hit 283, 11 homers, but he did stop stealing. So it's kind of balanced out. What we've seen from Michael Harris is kind of like the Langford of what we're talking about, where it's like, the guy could be a 280 hitter, 20 plus, especially if he is higher in the lineup. That still doesn't happen. You do have me thinking I might make an adjustment because I think the upside for a guy like Dominguez is pretty higher than Michael Harris. There's just a better floor with Harris.
Well,
Dylan Cruz might be the prime example.
And look, the Yankees went out of their way to add more pieces to the lineup around them, some more veterans too. That helps. Yeah. The ballpark factor is a very good one too for the Bronx. Jackson Holliday, another guy too, certainly disappointing early on, some signs of life in the second half there too. And it looks like you are pretty confident here, ranking with 35, that this is going to be a player you want to build a dynasty team around.
Yeah, I think the main thing I can throw at anybody is like, I was massively high on Jackson Holliday last year. I've obviously dinged him, not a crazy amount, but he is still 21 years old. I still believe in the bat. He had an 8% barrel rate and a 45% hard hit rate. Those are two great tools to build off of. He's got to lower his strikeout rate, and he has got to make better quality of contact. And I think that's going to happen. So my suggestion for Jackson Holliday, get a better discount on him. Get a better discount than paying inside the top 40. I think you probably can for people that are going to look at redraft values. There isn't a lot of what he did last year to take with you, except there's still good quality of contact when he makes quality of contact. Or there are good bat to ball skills when he gets to it. And I think that's going to bounce back this year, and he's a good dynasty buy, but try to get a better cost on him.
Now, Sasaki is interesting. You have him ahead of Yamamoto, who pitches on the Dodgers. Is that just an age thing, or is it also a size thing too, because he's a bigger pitcher?
Well, absolutely an age thing. Roki Sasaki has age in his favor. He is coming over and he's susceptible to the international signing rules because he's under 25. Yamamoto, I believe, is 30 years old. There's a couple of conflicting things. You got Baseball America is giving an 80 grade on his splitter. Lance Brazdowski did an amazing breakdown of what this splitter he throws. It's very unlike
Yamamoto is actually just 26. Just pointing that out.
Oh, is it 26? Did I say he was 30? I think I'm making him
confusing with Imanaga. Imanaga is the one that's 31 now, I think, going into this year.
100%. But Roki Sasaki's splitter compared to Yamamoto is something that might be a big differential. And again, go look at Lance's video on it, where he kind of describes a splitter as almost kind of like a bullet splitter, where it has a different trajectory of a line of sight of what we're used to on the plane from a fastball to splitter differential. It's a disgusting splitter. Guys also thrown triple digits. but some of that thing has fallen off. So there's a question mark. Can a team get back to this Roki Sasaki who threw for triple digits, had this big extension? Here's the other slight problem. Really seems like there might be some type of UCL or Tommy John thing in the near future. So, and I'm saying this because I think some people are going to have Roki Sasaki in Dynasty higher, because based on age, based on potential, the strikeout potential, he might be seen as like, a top 5 Dynasty starting pitcher. I do think there's some worries. This is another guy like Holliday. You might be open to even letting him fall a little bit, but the talent might surpass. He might not be in the same territory in 2 years of Logan Gilbert and Yamamoto.
I think it's so interesting is the next guy on the list here at 41 as we start the new board is Dylan Cease. Makes every start every single year.
Yeah.
He has been so durable. He has been so locked down. He's done nothing but get better in the last 2 years too. They're night and day for me. Forget 3-year window. I'll even take 5-year window. I want Dylan Cease over Sasaki, and it's not close right now. So that is what's fascinating. And I think most people are prisoners of the moment, right? It's the new thing. It's very exciting. Get all the buzz about this. But meanwhile, there's Dylan Cease just getting the job done every year at 32 starts. And that to me is far more impressive and far more investable long-term than what Sasaki is at this juncture, having never seen him throw a pitch in the major leagues.
And let me add to that, because do you remember what I said earlier in the show where I go, I don't think there's a lot of variance in the first round. Second round, maybe
as you go. The
third round, fourth round where we're in, you're not wrong. This is a territory where you do start paying a tiny bit more attention. If you are a team that you're like, you know what? I'm taking Freddie Freeman higher than he's being ranked. I'm taking some of these older guys. I'm going to take Zach Wheeler higher. If you're in a win now perspective, you should pay attention to a Cease versus Sasaki. It might take Sasaki 2 years to get right. Dylan Cease's prime is right now. When you said 5-year window, I don't know if I want Dylan Cease when he's 35, 34, 35, but do I want him at 29, 30, and 31 in the 3-year window? You're not wrong about that. So paying attention to the
Cease is only 29. I think people forget.
That's what I said.
Yeah. Like he'll be in his, 5 years from now, he's 33. Okay. Like some of these guys are going strong at 35, 36, 37 nowadays. Like Wheeler's a good example. These guys. Wheeler's a great example, but this guy's just throwing up, 30, 30, 30. Like, I mean, look, 32, 32, 33, 33 the last 4 years. I mean, that's stunning. The best stability is availability. These guys are pitchers.
Roki's got some risk. 100%.
He's fun to watch. I like my evaluation of him in the black book is really good. I like him as a pitcher, but there's definitely risk there. Where he lands has a lot to do with his development. Yeah. So I'm keen to wait before I really do the full write-up on him. Corey Seager at 42, Corbin Burnes at 43, new landing spot. He's a guy who's a little older too, same as Zach Wheeler at 44. Imanaga at 45, CJ Abrams at 46, George Kirby at 47, Yamamoto at 48, Albies at 49, and then Riley Green at 50, another guy who could jump up this list. Let's talk about Corbin Burnes here, a guy who's now in his 30s, same as Wheeler here. So you have Burnes ahead of Wheeler. I'm curious as to why.
Well, there's a pretty big age gap between the two. I think it's 3 or 4 years. Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, in a 3-year window, if Wheeler's getting into 37, 38, I think some people could look at Burnes last year and see like, oh, some things are starting to taper down. Interestingly enough, he actually added some velocity to his cutter, but that thing got hit up more, where his other two offerings, I believe it was the slider and I think the curveball, had batting averages against. It's actually 3 pitches here. Curveball, slider, and changeup had a 200 or lower batting average against. That's absurd. Those pitches got better. His cutter got hit up way more than it had in the prior year. But 3 of 4 pitches with a 200 or lower batting average, I actually think there's some settle of unluckiness with Corbin Burnes. I think he can bounce back. Plus, you've got, the super fast offensive team. Ballpark might come into play. I still think the stuff is there for Corbin Burnes. He had a 2.92 ERA. He had a sub 3.4 expected ERA. Barrels, he gave up a tiny bit more, but it was super low hard hit contact with a super fast outfield. I think Corbin Burnes is lined up pretty well. I think he's going to bounce back. I think it felt like some of the inconsistencies is he was moving away from being elite, but I still think he is really elite. And I thought this before he signed with the Diamondbacks. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the Diamondbacks ballpark factor might be a little bit of a problem, but back to the Roki Sasaki thing, it sucks because we broke him into 10s. So it feels like Roki's in this different tier. He's really not. He's in a tier of Dylan Cease, Corbin Burnes, Zach Wheeler, Imanaga. They're all different variants of each other. Do I want Zach Wheeler? probably the best pitcher on this list. He's a win now guy. You'd want to make that investment. Corbin Burnes, Imanaga, they've got 4 or 5 year windows. Roki's got a 10-year window. It's starting to be your flavor. And I just am still very much on Corbin Burnes, but he's in that tier with Wheeler and with Imanaga.
CJ Abrams, I want to talk about real quick too, because there's another guy too, turns 24. Obviously, there's power, there's speed. There's also some immaturity and some issues there too. Casinos, which we support. Go subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now.
Just not on game day. Just maybe not on game day.
Just not on game day. Just not on game day. And if you're gonna show up and get 3 hits. Like,
don't stay till 6 in the morning. Don't But
if you do, go out there the next day and get 3 hits. Like those guys in the 80s, smoking cigarettes in the dugout, and God knows what else they were doing. I mean, look, just go out there and get your hits, and then nobody cares. But with Abrams too, this is a guy that I fear next year could be top 20 on this list or outside the top 100 on this list. That's how I feel about Abrams. Do you see him with that same risk, or am I being a little hyperbolic?
Nah, I got my worries with it. I'll tell you, he actually outperformed what I thought he was going to be last year. I thought he was one of those guys that was like,
we loved him 2 years ago collectively. If you remember, we were like, go in. And then last year the price got really high. We were like, it's a little
I have an affinity for Abrams. Like, and I know I've said this before. I was at his major league debut, Padres. No one's in the stadium, rookie league ball. He hits a homer in his second at bat. I've got it on video. No, it's just me and Abrams and the team. Like, I've watched this guy since the day he started as a professional. So I have that affinity for him. But where his skill set has started to go, I started to question, this guy just learned to get the ball in the freaking air because he doesn't hit it hard. He doesn't barrel super great. He doesn't have pure raw power, and he just made enough of it. Well, guess what? He upped his home run total from 18 to 20 this year, stole a little bit less. He hit the ball a bit harder, but his strikeouts went up. I just think also the Savant's just below average kind of across the board. I think he gets away with some stuff. And I worry that his floor is like a 12 homer, 25 stolen base guy, which is still pretty good. So I have him a bit lower maybe than some others. And then the immaturity, we kind of don't know where that's going to go. What's going to happen? Is this going to keep tapering out and become an issue? I don't know. I just think there's some warning signs on Abrams to make a big super commitment, but I don't know, maybe top 50. I'm still putting my foot down on it.
All right. Outside of the top 51 through 100, there's a few names that stick out. We've highlighted some of them. We'll talk about a few of them too. I want to talk about Roman Anthony of the Boston Red Sox, a guy that I'm sure, some people are still getting familiar with. So how would you justify the ranking here at 59 overall?
Well, welcome to I believe this is our first player that has not had a single major league at bat. Yeah. Well, Roki Sasaki, I bet, would qualify technically because he hasn't had an inning. But this is the first bat that doesn't have a single major league at bat that is on a really high part of this list. What do I have him at? 59, I think is on this. Mm-hmm. I think some people are going to have him higher. Some people have him as the number 1 prospect in baseball. I don't. I've got him close in there. So he's going to be higher on other lists. He is, I believe, it could be Pipeline or Baseball America, have him as the favorite for AL Rookie of the Year. And it's a possibility, even if he doesn't break camp. We've seen guys be able to do, Skenes didn't break camp with it. His skill set, immense. Again, we use the words like bat to ball skills. It's elite. Big hard hit numbers. The guy can run, doesn't strike out. He's lowered his strikeout rates. He kind of does a little bit of everything. Boston's going to be a huge environment for him to hit in. If he were to break camp, I would not be surprised if he ended up being a 30-20 type of guy. So this is why he ranks so high. Skill sets are kind of through the roof. I still like Cruz and Jason Dominguez a bit more than Anthony for some other people, but he has a chance to break camp. There is a proximity factor into this. He has got to go inside the top 75 of a dynasty draft, a new fresh start one. And frankly, he's probably going to go a little bit higher than some others. I do think redraft, he has the potential to maybe disappoint this year. So I'm not quite as excited, but he is very, very high. And most people probably just don't have him outside the top 50 like I do.
It's funny. Visually, he looks like Michael Rappaport had a baby with Robert De Niro.
Yeah, the picture you're talking about.
The picture I'm talking
about. Yeah.
That's my son. He's going to play. He's going to play very well for the Red Sox.
I know exactly what picture you're talking
about. He really does have that look about it.
It's like you.
You. Very good. Mark Vientos at 76. I'm just going to say right now, he's going to blow past this ranking this year. Love the lineup. He is young enough. He's already shown you. Look, I think he's a 35 home run guy starting next year. I really do. And it's not me being exaggerating. It's certainly not me being a Mets fan saying it. That's, where I'm self-loathing more than any Met fan almost. But the Vientos is a guy I believed in him last year. We talked about on the show. We have talked about adding him. We talked about spring training, what he did, and he showed you he was ready for the big stage last year in the playoffs. Love him. Can't get enough Vientos. There's 3 pitchers in a cluster too. 84, 85, 86. Yuri Perez, Shane McClanahan, Sandy Alcantara. Now, you're not going to believe this, Welsh. In my keeper league, I've got all 3 of these guys for a collective $5 combined.
Wow.
Because I drafted them last year and stashed them at the end of the draft when people weren't paying attention. So I got one for like $2 and the other for $1 or something like that. And they have the escalators this year. So again, you got Alcantara, who is about as consistent as it gets. McClanahan, huge upside. Yuri Perez, certainly another guy too that looks like a big time upside guy. Unfortunately, pitching. All of these guys are in Florida still too. Like, we're hoping that Alcantara gets out of there soon. And now Shane McClanahan also changing location too. That's something we got to talk about too, because the Tampa Bay situation here, they're going to be playing in the Yankee facility, the spring training facility. And it is not the same pitching advantage that the old building was.
Yeah, no, you're right. And there's a lot to unpack on all these guys.
Yeah.
I would say I think these are some of the best values for Dynasty. Yuri probably doesn't have the best like redraft first season return value. I think it's gonna be like midway through the year. McClanahan and Alcantara are coming off of their injuries, look like they're going to be, starting close to I think Alcantara will, McClanahan maybe a month or so. I think these are the best. These are the best values. Both of these guys ranked really high. McClanahan is my favorite, but had the worst production before he got hurt. There were some really bad declines, which I didn't like, but I still would invest in. I think these should be targets for everybody, no matter what type of construction. Maybe not all of them because of the injuries, but you should go after one of them. Yuri being the youngest, McClanahan, I think, having the best tools, Alcantara being the floor of all of those players. These should be some type of a target. And I just want to mention on your Vientos thing, I might have Vientos too low. I do think he has a potential to blow past this. My worry, still 30% strikeout rate, expected batting average, still under 250, but it's elite hitting skills, 14% barrel rate, big hard hit. If he's a 250, 30 home run guy, this is probably the relative range, maybe a little bit higher. If he becomes a 265, 270 hitter, then we're underselling him.
There's no way he doesn't drive in 100 runs in that lineup.
And then he's Pete Alonso. Then he's just younger Pete Alonso.
Just look at, Soto hitting in front of Judge, and now you got this young kid in Vientos. And look, we'll see what happens with Alonso. Still recording this. We don't have clarity, but I just think Vientos is the truth, man. I just do. All right, guys outside the top 100. The one that stands out to me is 137 Lawrence Butler. Had a terrific season, really came out of nowhere for a lot of people and carried a lot of teams through the summer, just prolific with the power. Yeah. And now he's going to be potentially in a better environment. Remember, Oakland's not going to be playing in Oakland anymore. The Athletics are now in Sacramento for the next couple of years. So we'll see how that ballpark plays. So maybe there's opportunity here for some even better numbers for him and guys like Rooker too. So that's the guy on my radar. I know 2 guys for you, Spencer Schwellenbach and Jordan Lawlar, 101 and 136 respectively, are also on your radar.
Yeah, just a couple notes. Lawrence, I don't disagree. I know for a fact there are some higher rankings of him in Dynasty. I think there's an element of I would like to see him do it again before I make him a top 50 overall prospect, but he did show elements of it. Elite hard hit, elite barrel. I love those 2 stats in connection with overall hit tools. With that, expected batting average was solid. He lowered his strikeout rate. I think the ballpark factor for right-handed hitters in this minor league park is a benefit, but there's a lot of elements of it that are similar that aren't big. So it's not like an entire minor league. It's not like playing here in Arizona in one of the spring training facilities. I believe it's right-handed hitters have like a 5-foot differential in favor of them hitters. So it's a little bit in that spot. So I'm a little bit lower, I suppose. Schwellenbach personally is one of my favorites. I might just be too low on him, which is crazy, but I have him at 101. So he just missed this list. I think, again, from a dynasty, if I could piece together the perfect pitchers through top 125 picks, give me like Crochet in the 3rd round, give me a McClanahan in the 4th or 5th, and then give me a Schwellenbach later. Those are good investments.
I like a good late Schwellenbach.
Everybody likes a good Schwellenbach. Schwellenbach,
especially the later you can get one, it's the best. You sleep like a baby.
Yeah, maybe you don't get a Schwellenbach on like Monday or Tuesday, but give me a Schwellenbach on the weekend.
Yeah, on the weekend. Yeah,
a weekend Schwellenbach is the best. And your dynasty team Schwellenbach is the best. So I really like his potential to put us some elite strikeout numbers. So Schwellenbach is one of my favorite. And I just threw Lawlar out here because Lawlar has the potential to really skyrocket if given the opportunity, but we don't know that that's going to happen. I personally think the Diamondbacks could end up playing around with a scenario where Lawlar starts playing in the outfield, maybe similar to what Jackson Merrill did, because I don't know if they would commit to him playing over Geraldo Perdomo, but he just had a really, really great run in the Dominican Winter League, starting to hit again. Homers are going. He has 2020 potential. He could exponentially be more valuable than Lawlar or than Lawrence Butler, but he's going after. So Jordan Lawlar is a outside the top 100 to pay attention to. And I would just throw out, there's immense values outside the top 100. This is a spot where I really like to start paying attention to older players that have fallen. I think Jacob deGrom is one of those. He's really tough. How long will he play? Chris Sale. I want to win now. I'm not afraid to take a Caminero, a James Wood, a Dylan Cruz. But when I do so personally, I'm absolutely trying to find those values of the older players that fell, not just be like, no, they're off my list, I'll never take them. You're going to find crazy values in a dynasty draft outside the top 100. So make sure your eyes are locked in. And if you guys want, I got a 150 that's going to be available on FantasyPros, and I'll do a little bit of a breakdown for it. And you can find even more dynasty ranks. Follow me on Twitter and you'll find out where you can find all the rest that do like up to 400.
There you have it, everybody. That's a good look at the Dynasty ranks. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Drop your comments below with your rankings. Guys you like, guys you don't. We love to hear from all of you. And ring the bell till it goes ding for notifications so you're with us all off-season and all in-season. Leading off, we'll be here every single day before you know it. We got a lot of content planned here for the channel. We are going to be your one-stop destination for all things fantasy baseball. That'll do it for us. But the story of the game goes on. For the Welsh, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.